Mag of Cascadia tuning in for another video. I hope you guys are doing well. To all those in the present and the future who are going to watch this. Been sick as a dog. Family's been sick as a dog. But finally starting to recover a little bit, so I'm on the up and up. Just headed down here to the store to pick up some lags for my barn I'm building. Holy smokes, this barn is costing me an arm and a leg to build, but it's gonna be fucking gigantic. So I'm stoked. Long way to go. Building the roof right now. There's a second floor. We already built that. You know. Anywho, why I wanted to tune in is I had a very interesting conversation with my wife's grandfather. He's a good man. Good man. Really, I love the man. He's just a good old boy, you know. But like many people in his generation, you know, he was subject to the largest propaganda, social engineering, operation the Earth's ever seen, or arguably mankind has ever witnessed. I think he's almost 80, or he is 80, and I can't hate the man, even though he holds all of these beliefs that I would argue are, just total suicidal, self-destructing beliefs and ideologies, So, but anyways, I had this very interesting conversation with him. I told him about my involvement in certain organizations and what we're about and our goals and what we do and everything. And, he had all of the just NPC responses that you could imagine, because really we start talking about the organization and then we start talking about race, that's, kind of at the forefront of public consciousness right now, especially here in America, in the West for that matter. But we started talking about, just racial issues and identity and all of this stuff. And a couple days later, after we had this conversation, it was a long conversation, we talked for like an hour or so, he asked, how embedded are you in this organization? I said, well, I'm a member, nothing crazy. I'm not like a goddamn general or some shit, but I'm involved and whatnot. And so I sent him the manifesto of the org, so so he could see really what we're about and what we do and our goals and all that stuff. So I sent him the manifesto, and he didn't reply for a couple days. And then a couple days later, he texts me, hey, I'm really concerned. I read the manifesto and it sounds like a white supremacy group. It sounds like a racial hate group. So I just asked him straight away, so what in the manifesto makes you think that it's a white supremacy organization? Again, he didn't text back. So I texted him the next day and just gave him, my opinion about the organization and the facts about the organization. And the first thing that he asked me is, the evangelical cult mantra of, do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God and he died for your sins on the cross? That's what he asked me. And, I understand where he's coming from, who he is, and what he's about. And if I told him no, I think it's a Jewish lie, I think it's a fucking mind virus invented by people who wanted to destroy the source of all Aryans' power, and that is our racial consciousness and our loyalty to tribe and to nation and kin, to the folk, I mean, truly, that's what I see it as. I think that the Europeans, because we're so great at everything we do, I think that we kind of judo flipped Christianity into a nationalistic ideology, and one that served us for many, 1,000 years almost, or 1,000 years to create Western civilization. So I don't have like hatred towards Christianity, but I wouldn't really consider myself a Christian in the sense that, I would say that I worship Jesus in the pantheon of all the gods of my ancestors. I hail Jesus Christ, but I also hail Odin, my father, and I hail Thor, the protector of man, and Freya, and Yngvi. I hail these gods, but anyways, all that to say, we had a very fascinating conversation. I would send him a good paragraph explaining, this is my beliefs, this is what it's about, and he would reply with a couple words. First he asked me, the whole evangelical mantra. I said, yeah, I believe in Jesus. I think that he's worthy to worship. And then he asked me, am I anti-Zionist? And I said, absolutely. Then he asked me, do you hate the Jews? I said, no, I don't hate the Jewish people, but I hate their influence in our government. I don't really care what they do outside of the U.S., but I think that they should leave and stop influencing our government. I think that we can't proceed as a nation and actually fix all these problems unless we boot them out of the government. And then what did he ask me after that? He asked me, then the next thing he asked me was, do you oppose anyone non-white in governmental leadership? And I said, well, theoretically, if there was someone non-white in the government who advocated for our people and set in policy and laws in place so that we would not be ethnically erased in our own homelands, then theoretically, sure, I would vote for them or support them. But that's not reality, and race is real. And if you believe in God like you say you do, Grandpa, God made all the races. This is how the divine crafted us. And race is real. People will always have loyalty to their tribe. So based on that basis, in a short answer, no, I will not support a non-white person governing us. I believe that the government leaders should reflect the people that they rule. So I don't want Indians or blacks or Mexicans or whoever the fuck else to be our leaders. I think that's absurd, And he didn't reply for a while, and then he finally sent a big ass paragraph about how he is concerned that I will get too embedded in this organization, and that this organization has been linked to millions of dollars of property damage, violence against people, actually resulting in someone's death, and that they are a racial hate group. So, I haven't responded to him yet because I don't really know what to say. I just want to say, hey, God bless you, Grandpa. I appreciate your concern, and leave it at that. That's what I want to say to him. But it's just, in my heart of hearts, in my mind, reading this message, I'm thinking, man, these boomers are cooked, man. They're fucking cooked. They will tell you out of one side of their mouth, oh yeah, you can't trust the media, and then out of the other side of the mouth, they read some articles by fucking communists, and they tell me that, oh, your group is a racial hate group that murdered someone, destroys property, and is a bad path to go down. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, you guys read some articles online and believe it, but you won't take my word. You know me, you trust me, we're actually family, and you don't trust me over what some bullshit you read online. After I told them that, hey man, our group is not a racial supremacy group in any way. We actually disavow any form of Nazism, fascism, ethnic hatred, or any of this stuff. It's a nationalist group. It's simply an American nationalist group. And it has nothing to do with hatred at all. There's not one fucking word in that entire manifesto that says anything about hating anyone or having some kind of racial supremacy. It's really interesting. And so he reads some shit online and is convinced that I'm part of some racial hatred group, after I spend fucking all morning talking to him, telling him like, hey man, there's a ton of slander out there of the organization, but like what we do is it has nothing to do with any of that slander. Like as we speak, our organization is organizing men to go over and do disaster relief for people flooding in Western Washington. There's a bunch of floods over in Western Washington, and our group is going to go help people. We do community events, we do physical training, we put up stickers and posters, and it's a totally peaceful, law-abiding entity. And so it's just fascinating to get a peek into the boomers' mind, who are just wholly convinced that if any white men come together, congregate, have in-group preference, and say, no, this is our identity, and we're going to advocate for ourselves, and we're going to do everything in our power to advocate for our group, our collective interests. If you do that, they go, oh, you're part of a hate group, that's evil, it could blow back and hurt your family, and I don't want you to get too dragged into it. And like I said, in my heart of heart, in my mind of minds, I'm thinking to myself, man, these boomers are the worst generation to ever exist in America. They have literally taken their children's inheritance, their grandchildren's, their great-grandchildren's inheritance, and said, you know what, we're morally obligated to hand it to foreigners. And all the foreigners, they can congregate in our lands, they can have in-group preference, they can love their identity and get millions of dollars of subsidies from the government and grants and all this stuff and get protected on universities and have all this shit. But our great-great-grandchildren and our children and our grandchildren, they can't have any of that. They're not allowed to congregate and advocate for themselves. It's actually immoral for them. And so it's so interesting seeing these boomers who will tell you up, straight to your face and 100% believe it, that they are conservatives, when in reality their entire ideology has a foundation of this liberal. It's a liberal ideology, a communist ideology. That is, if we have any kind of in-group preference as white people, that it's going to lead to the Holocaust. Therefore, we have to give up our lands, our wealth, our nations. We have to give them up to foreigners, because that's what a good Christian would do. He told me, the classic boomer thing, that if we bless Israel, then we'll be blessed. So that's what, we're supposed to do as Christians. And then he told me the classic, it's it's so interesting. He told me that, well, the Bible says that the U.S. is doomed to fail, so there's nothing we can do about it. So it's like when you pick apart these people's ideologies, they're in a doomsday cult, a race-mixing doomsday cult that believes it's illegal and immoral for you to have any kind of racial consciousness, and that America's just going to fall anyways. So just open the gates, let the Mexicans in, let the Indians and Africans in. They're going to rape your daughters, trash your lakes, poach your elk, and destroy your nation, your education, your healthcare, because that's what the Bible says. Because that's what we have to do. We have to support Zionists and these fucking, really, they're not even actually biblical Jews. It's very provable at this point that these fucking Ashkenazi whatevers, they're like a demonic fucking satanic cult that assumed the identity of the Israelites, the people in the Bible, so that they could subvert Western society and destroy it from within. They're the progenitors of his name's Jacob Levy Sabbatai Levy and Jacob. Oh fuck, what's his name? I can't remember. They're Satanist, quote unquote Jews. That realize they could never overcome the Aryan without great subversion and deception. And so it is a straight up case study on these people who have adopted their whole lives. They have adopted a suicidal ideology where they have been thoroughly propagandized and beaten into subjugation and beaten until they're docile enough to say, you know what, Jesus wouldn't want you to be pro-white. Jesus was a brown guy. He was a Jew. Our God is a Jew. And he wouldn't want you to fight for a future for your children. You know, he wouldn't want that. You know, that's just not right. And, you know, there's so many different facets and elements to why these boomers think this way. I mean, it's not just one thing. It's not just because they read the Bible. I mean, holy shit, you could read the Bible and interpret it and literally come up with anything at all. It's not even one book. It's a coalition of books from all over the world compiled together in this masterful story overlaid with myth and, you know, all this really good stuff. There's a ton of great stuff in the Bible. I mean, it's awesome, but it really, I mean, it gave birth to Mormonism and Protestantism and Jehovah's Witness and you know, arguably Islam, and all this stuff comes from the Bible. So you can just interpret it however. But the Jewish, you know, slave holders, the masters of the banking system that have, you know, took control of the entire education system and seminaries and all this stuff, they have very masterfully crafted this new interpretation of the Bible, which is only like 100 years old, and probably not even. This interpretation that has convinced millions and millions and hundreds of millions of white folks all over the world that it is their moral obligation to mix themselves out of existence. It is their moral obligation to not tribe up. It is so fascinating, you know. They you know, another thing that they just don't understand is that race is upstream from everything. So they claim to love America and love their nation and stand by the Constitution and all this stuff, but they don't understand the very obvious, like even third worlders understand this, that the reason why the West is great, the reason why we have plumbing and electricity and phones and air travel and all this stuff, it's because of white people. It's because of white people. So if you remove white people and America becomes, you know, majority Hispanic or whatever the fuck it's going to become, it will become like Mexico. It will become like Latin America. It'll become like Africa or the Middle East. These people have been so beaten down for so long that they don't understand that if you remove us as the majority, that there will be no freedom of speech. There will be no Second Amendment. Women will not have the rights that they do now. Cities won't function. The trains won't be on time. The bus drivers will crash. There will be potholes in the road. There will be, you know, the warlords and cartel. There will be 10 times as much sex trafficking. There will be, the list goes on. And these people don't understand that. And, you know, you can't hate them. You can't hate them. The poor people were lied to their entire lives about pretty much everything. And they grew up in a totally white society. And so they don't understand all of these things. They grew up in a totally white society where it didn't matter someone's race. It mattered what they thought. And it was all merit-based because everyone was white. You can have a society that's all merit-based. You can have a society where it's just about your ideas and your hard work. That works when you have a pretty much homogeneous society. The second it becomes a multi-racial, multicultural society, all that goes out the window, and it's just racial blocks voting against each other for power for their own people. So now that's where we are. It's 2025, almost 2026. We are effectively in a completely multiracial, multicultural society, and for whatever reason, the gods have opened my eyes enough for me to understand that if we don't tribe up, we lose everything. If we don't tribe up and have that staunch in-group preference, it's all for loss. Every single one of our ancestors that fought and died in all the wars, it's all out the window unless we pick our own people over the masses of foreigners. Hail the gods, hail our people. Peace out.